The Ensombl Advice South Africa podcast is intended for professional financial advisors. All discussion is limited to publicly available information and should not be interpreted as legal, professional, or financial advice.
Hi, I'm Louis van der Merwe, Certified Financial Planner. Join me every week where I get to have discussions with global leaders in the financial planning space to help you serve your clients better and run a more efficient financial planning practice. This is the Ensombl Advice South Africa podcast.
Portfolio Metrics is thrilled to bring you this podcast in support of our common passion for people and the evolution of wealth management. Our global business links precision investment management to expert financial advice through partnerships and technology. Portfolio Metrics is an authorized financial services provider. ComSpace is a revenue management solution developed specifically for independent financial advisors. It is a web-based application that tracks, allocates, and manages advisor revenue. The system seamlessly reads commission statements from financial institutions and can address any permutation of commission splits. ComSpace provides mind-blowing, out-the-box revenue business intelligence and analytics, along with super flexible reporting to effectively manage and grow your business.
Before we start this week's episode, we wanted to let you know that the views expressed by Kevin are his own and not necessarily those of his employer, Allan Gray. Hope you enjoyed this episode.
Welcome to another episode of Ensombl Advice South Africa. Today I have with me physically in the office, Kevin Feather. Kevin has been an inspiration for me as a financial planner, guiding the change in financial planners and specifically his role around bringing the coaching element to financial planners. I think that has been really pivotal. Thank you, Kevin, for being here today.
Louis, thank you very much for having me today.
Kevin, you mentioned to me before we started that you've spanned almost 4 decades in financial services, and I look forward to unpacking a little bit of what those 4 decades look like, but also what the next 4 might look like.
Don't know about the next 4 decades, but let me reflect on, let's say, the past 38 years in this industry, which really started what was that in 1985 in Bloemfontein, I might add, because I originate from Bloemfontein, and I was an investment advisor at Trust Building Society, which is part of the Trust Bank group. Yes, and I think that was my foray into, dealing with clients, selling product to them, which was, let's say, fixed term deposits, tax-free deposits. So it was interesting, I think, in that time already, to start connecting and developing relationships with clients. And that was, let's say, nearly a 2-year journey. Was then approached by Sanlam in Bloemfontein and really joined Sanlam as a broker consultant, and it was then still called a broker consultant, but we'll get to that terminology a little bit later, because I think that talks to the evolution of the financial planning industry and the terminology used. Yes, and I think that's where I really got into working with financial planners, seeing how they work, see how they think. And I might just add, looking at the evolution again of financial planning, that's when it was still a product, sales-driven industry. I was with Sanlam as a broker consultant for about 11 years. In 1989, I moved down to Cape Town, also as a broker consultant, and continued that journey, of working with financial planners and looking at the challenges that they have with dealing with clients. And then when was it? About 1997, I joined Sanlam Unit Trusts to start a new division there, targeting LISPs, and being the let's say the liaison between Sanlam Unit Trusts and the LISP platforms, and then also focusing on multi-managers who in that point in time were putting wrap funds together. So it was I think, an interesting period there to, then working with, relationships and a different kind of, let's say, client at that point in time. Yes, and then what was it at 2005? I really got this opportunity to join Allan Gray, to really develop independent financial advisors. And at that point in time, my mandate was really to assist independent financial advisors to retain their independence, and really also to assist them to build long-term sustainable businesses. Because that, I think, was key, is, it's not only about selling, it's about, as an independent financial advisor, running a business and really working on your business and not only in your business. And that's really where I started, not only myself, but, collaborating with team members to really look at the independent financial advice space, and really analyzing and researching, what independent financial advisors needed within their practice. Because we really felt at that point in time it was about managing your business, according to best practice or global best practice benchmarking standards. And we took a number of financial advisors. There were about close to 40 financial advisors with about, let's call it 30 FSPs, through a process where we got external service providers in to do a global best practice benchmarking audit. And it was very interesting to see, what challenges the independent financial advisors had at that point in time. And, we really try to assist them, to navigate through these challenges with the help of these external service providers to really implement, some of the suggestions that were put forward in the audit reports. And we did, in fact, 2 audits, a practice audit as well as a compliance audit. And you may remember that's when the Phase Act really started, and that was a challenging time for many independent financial advisors. And really, we got these specialists in, to really focus on going through certain files and ensuring, that they're, from a Phase Ombuds perspective, that they were following the process. So I think that was very insightful, not only for myself or for Allan Gray, but very insightful for, the independent financial advisors, or the FSPs, that went through this process. And from there, we really I saw the value in, focusing on your practice. And we then developed the Allan Gray, let's say, practice management programs, where we made use of external service providers. And we took so many advisors through the practice management programs. Again, instilling in them that really you need to work, on your business and not only in your business. And I gave them a number of guidelines via these external service providers, what to focus on, within your business, right from the start, from your setting up this business, and looking at the vision right through to your value proposition as a financial advisor and as an FSP to clients. And so it evolved. We ran these practice management programs. What was it, for about 4 years, and it was really about doing some thorough and in-depth research in terms of global developments in the financial planning space. And as we went on, I clearly identified, financial life planning was coming to the fore there, and went on a research process, to really look at the work done by a number of thought leaders in the industry, and the Mitch Anthonys, the George Kinders, of the world, really looked at, their work, and their insights, looked at their insights that they brought to the industry. Yeah, which was, very, very insightful to us, but I think at that point in time, fairly new in the industry. And I think it was about, if I just want to get my numbers right, probably about 5 years ago, what was 2018. Actually, we introduced the Allan Gray the behavioral coaching program and took a number of financial advisors through this process to really adopt a coaching way of being with their clients and really cultivating a deeper connection, with clients and that deeper human or emotional connection with clients. Again, it was I think a fascinating journey to see that some let's say thought leaders, or let's say financial planners that were thought leaders, being ahead of the curve and really introducing financial life planning into their approach to clients, and really adopting a coaching way of being with clients. And through that program, we clearly could see how certain independent financial advisors then changed from a fixed mindset, to a growth mindset, and the development that really took place. And some of them really shared some personal stories of how they'd changed their thinking and changed their approach. And some of them shared, how employees within the FSPs see them differently, due to this, adopting a coaching way of being, not only with your clients, but with staff, with family members. So that was very insightful and really showed me that we were having a great impact, in terms of changing lives and being part of this thought leadership in the industry, and being ahead of the curve, so to speak. And we had 2 iterations of the behavioral coaching program, and clearly we saw the same pattern with the second behavioral coaching program. And I think what was fascinating too is, and I think this is a human element, is certain people take longer to really get it. Nothing wrong with that, but as long as you get it and you really, evolve and, stay ahead of the curve in terms of developments in this industry. So, so we completed 2 iterations of that, and we took it a step further and did some additional research, and really found that one of the, let's say, areas of feedback that we got was, we focused on self-development, the development of the financial planner, and you're really adopting a coaching way of being with your client. But how do we integrate this, these learnings into the whole client engagement process so that it's a seamless process from a client engagement perspective? Really took us to the next level, where we did some additional research, and said, well, let's bring that component into it, is really cultivating, systematizing, and implementing the human connection, within your financial planning business. And we're currently busy with that process. I think over the years, what we've adopted in the evolution of our programs is the principle of action, reflection, and learning. Is you have an action, you really reflect on it, and then you learn from it, and you really adjust. And I think that's a very important principle. And I think it goes back to a comment I made, is I try and remind myself that there are no failures. There are learnings. And I think that gets back to the action, reflection, learning approach. And if you can have that mindset, in terms of this continuous learning process, I try and remind myself on a daily basis, at this point in my career, is what new thing can I learn today? And that's been my philosophy. And, hopefully we can continue, I can continue making a difference in the lives of financial planners and taking them to this next level. Because clearly we know that AI is going to have a huge impact AI can select products, do the technical stuff for you, but AI can't connect with the emotions of the client. So that's where I see the opportunity in the industry going forward, is for financial planners, to really connect at an emotional level with clients and really take that journey with them.
Kevin, you've seen many financial planning relationships, and I'm wondering, maybe even from when you joined Allan Gray in 2005, how was it seeing these advisors that you've been working with for the last, 15, 20, maybe 30-year relationships? How is it seeing how the impact that you're making in their lives and they're changing their businesses? What does that bring to you?
Well, I think it's a great feeling to see that, financial planners or independent financial advisors are really adopting, the principles. And to be totally honest, it's not just about me. It's about collaborating with a number of other people in this process. And, I think that's what I've learned over the years, is it's not only about yourself. Is you need to network. You need to, identify the thought leaders, the specialists in particular areas, and put this together and develop those relationships with independent financial advisors and see them develop. I think that's a great feeling too.
But that's definitely a gift, right? Being able to identify something and say, hey, I think I can package this into a way that financial planners can take action, can reflect, and can learn. Because that's one thing we often see. We have all this information, right? Someone once said that if information was the only thing it took, we'd all be millionaires with six packs. So we know it's not just information, right? Then why is it so difficult for us to take action in our businesses when we learn about, we need to involve this? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it might get back to what I mentioned earlier on, is maybe as humans, we adopt a fixed mindset and really struggle to develop these new neural pathways. And it's really about developing habits. So I think a great read is James Clear's Atomic Habits, which really focuses on, just making these small improvements. And we said that, habits are the compound interest of self-development. And that's really stuck with me. And just making what he says, these 1% changes on a regular basis, which then I think gets you to this compounding effect. And I think he refers to habit stacking as well. So a great read. I read the book as well. And I think another a great read is Growing Greatness by Pepe Marais, which I've read as well. It's, again, a recommended reading book.
I want to ask you, Kevin, is there any habits that you've incorporated in your life to remain positive and remain motivated? Because you always bring so much energy to conversations. It seems like there's Kevin always shows up to conversations. Like, what is the secret sauce behind those habits in your life?
Well, yeah, generally I've always been a positive person. It's clearly about trying to make a difference and, bringing something to the conversation. Hopefully something creative, something different to the conversation. And I think one of the principles that came through in the EBL coaching program is really through your questioning and, asking the right questions, getting the other person to think about this particular scenario. But then again, I think it's so important to ask the right question, to get the right answer, and that takes some skills. So I think it's over the years, being on this journey and really listening. I think that's a great principle as well. Is we as humans inclined to speak too much and don't listen much. So really developing that listening skill, because it's not only about me. It's about the other individual as well, and really getting behind their thinking and making them feel important and getting their perspective on a particular scenario. And I think that's the other bit is from a financial advice perspective, it's really about the clients deciding for themselves what is best for them. We're not the experts, or the financial planner is not the expert in their lives. So again, I think it gets back to connecting with the heart and really having these deeper conversations with clients to really get back to or really understand their history, their values, their relationship with money. And so that's what I've given you a bit of a long-winded answer here, but it's just really absorbing through reading, through listening. So I think that's been my philosophy over the years.
I like what you've said there about bringing some creativity, bringing something different to the conversation. And as financial planners running businesses, you get to look from the outside in, and you maybe see the blind spots that we don't have. I want to talk about what that we do have that we can't see. I want to talk about those two things you mentioned within your mandate, right? So helping financial planners to remain independent,
yes,
and to continue growing their business. Has that become more challenging over the last 18 years?
Oh, most certainly. It's I think from a regulatory perspective, from a legislation perspective, it's quite clear. And most recently, I surveyed a number of independent financial advisors, and one of the issues is regulation, the increasing compliance costs. And then what does that have an impact on? Yeah, it has an impact on profitability, has downstream consequences. So there are a number of areas that it really touches within your financial advice firm, which you have to be cognizant of. So I think that's a challenge for many independent financial advisors. And is the answer technology? Yes, it most certainly is. To really free up your time to spend more quality time, developing deeper relationships with your clients and leaving the rest, to technology. Hopefully, yeah.
Given when I speak to financial planners in Australia or America or Canada, they tell me the same thing. I struggle with regulation. I struggle with profitability. I struggle servicing the smaller clients. Do we feel unique in South Africa with our challenges, or is it just, hey, this is a global challenge that financial planners face?
Well, I believe it's a global challenge. I'll give you one example: is succession planning. That's something that's come up on a regular basis, and it's a global phenomenon. It's a global challenge. With the aging IFA, let's say population, if I can call it that. It most certainly is a challenge. And, what's the solution? Yes, bringing younger advisors into your business, which also comes with challenges. It's not a short-term process. It's a long-term process. And however, in saying this, you're not in business for the short term. You're in business for the long term. And succession planning or continuity, what does that really mean? And it means that the business outlives the owner.
That's such an important concept. And I think you mentioned earlier how we shouldn't just think in transactions. We should think maybe in decades and relationships. But is that what every financial planner signs up for? Especially someone maybe in their early 20s joining this profession, thinking that, hey, I'm going to make a quick buck and this is going to be not a lot of work. I want to share with you a story before you answer that. I had someone job shadow me this week, and after the end of the day, we did a check-in and we said, how did you find it? And he said, wow, I never knew there's so much to what you do. Once again, until you lift the hood and you actually see what goes on inside a business, inside servicing a client, maybe clients don't appreciate how much we actually do that they do not see.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, that's what I saw over the years as well. From in terms of managing your advice business, it's not easy. There are multiple factors there. But to get back to the client is, how do you articulate the value that you're adding to them, adding to their lives? And I think that's what I've seen over the years is many independent financial advisors or advice businesses really struggle with articulating their value and really articulating and documenting that value proposition to clients, and really explaining that to clients. I really believe the industry should be moving towards a fee-for-service kind of a model, and it's a move away from assets under management being paid on that, because clearly, and then giving you my view, is that what does a client see? It's about managing the assets, and it's potentially thinking differently. It's about managing the individual and the service, that you're providing to the client, and really articulating that and really explaining that to the client so that they get a very good understanding of what value the financial planner is offering them.
That I think it's worth talking a little bit about how do we transition potentially away from assets under management into different fee models. We have one group of people saying, clients don't really care how you get paid as long as the value exceeds the price. And then you have another group of people saying, well, actually, I don't want to cross-subsidize. I don't want to be paying for the smaller clients. I want to be paying for the service that you are delivering. And is that what you're saying? This is your personal view, not necessarily Allan Gray's view.
That's I must add, that's my personal view, and this is what I've seen in the industry, globally, I might add, because we've had a number of, let's call it, study tours to Australia. It's really about, let's call it a fee for service. However, with that comes a number of challenges as well that we've seen over the years is, invoicing, which, you potentially need an additional resource to be able to, manage the invoicing principle. I think it's important to start thinking about that. Is this where the industry's going? If we moving towards, really developing this deeper human connection, it's about what's your unique value proposition to your client.
Are there people in South Africa that are successfully implementing a fee-for-service model that you know of?
Yes, most certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not about this can't be done. It's about how do we replicate?
It's there. However, I might add, what I've seen over the years is that there's a hybrid model. I haven't seen many advice businesses or let's say independent advice businesses in South Africa that, are purely fee for service. Okay. And yes, I've missed it somewhere, but what I've seen is really a hybrid model.
I think it's also sometimes testing a part of your business and say, okay, with part, we're going to be doing this. And that's maybe worthwhile talking about how when we think about business management, business planning, it doesn't have to be all for nothing. We don't have to now all of a sudden, villainize assets under management and completely only go the one way. We can start considering some of these alternative options.
No, certainly. And I think that's a great point, because what we've seen, or what I've seen, is introducing the fee-for-service model selectively, because there are, I've also heard that a number of advisors where clients really prefer, paying for that service, and it's an X amount for that service. Yeah. So do you introduce that, selectively, see how it goes, and maybe expand from there? But clearly, I agree with you. There's a space for being paid, percentage of assets under management.
Given apart from the unique value proposition, if you had to step into a financial planning practice and look under the hood and say, okay, the first thing I'm going to look at to check that things are in place, what would that be? If you bought a practice tomorrow and you stepped in and you said, okay, Kevin is now the CEO of Feather Financial Planning, what would that look like?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because we did some work on this, let's say, about 5-6 years ago, is what do you look at when buying a financial advice business? And there are multiple factors. Is what are the funds that they're using? Does it match the funds that I'm using currently? Let's look at the financials. Let's look at your financial statements over 3 to 5 years. Let's look at your client base. What's the age of your client base? Is there any risk in that? So there, I might add, there's a long list, of factors that you need to consider when going into potentially buying an advice business. The employees that you have there, what do you do with your employees? So it's not an easy exercise, and again, in my view, to go through that process. And the research that I did is that there were 2 key factors here. Is when you go into this process, one is personality and culture. And if those don't match your culture and personality, then maybe it's about walking away. That's been my analysis.
Okay.
From the research that I've done. But again, as we've said, this is my structure of interpretation, and I might be wrong.
It is, however, valuable because you've seen this same movie many, many times.
Yes.
And I'm hearing you say that it's the health of the business, but more so it's about the people and it's about, that personal connection.
Yeah, and I think maybe to add to that is, because I think this is a principle that many advice, or let's say independent advice businesses should be focusing on, is really what is my employee value proposition? You think about your client value proposition or your unique client value proposition, but what am I offering my employees to really stay with me? Because that's a large investment in your business, and you'd like them to be there for the long term.
Given the work that you're doing with Allan Gray around improving businesses, I think is critical because a lot of financial planners are just accidental entrepreneurs. You are a financial planner, you maybe become a little bit more successful, you want to do your own thing, and now all of a sudden you're a business owner. You never set out to do that. What are you seeing from the businesses that are really growing faster than other businesses? What are they doing, or what kind of people are they employing that would surprise our listeners?
Well, surprise, but maybe it's known, but I think it's just about reinforcing it. I think the principle of having a para planner in your advice business, that's one. And I think the other, let's say, principle is having a practice manager or a chief operating officer, for the want of a better word, in the advice business as well, to take that responsibility, away from the advisor, where the advisor can really focus on spending more time with the client, deepening those relationships with the client, and hopefully seeing the business grow from there.
To someone to look after the engine and the back part that's driving this business.
Definitely, but I think it's really about looking at this from a client engagement process holistically, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're running professional businesses, right? Why does a financial services business have to operate differently than other businesses that run successfully?
Well, I think that's again an interesting comment around business. And what I've seen over the years is, going back to 2005, 2006, where there were many practices. However, we've seen them evolving, certainly evolving from practice to a business. And really, it's not just earning fees on a monthly basis. You now have introduced salaries into the business. So I think that's a concept, moving or evolving potentially from a practice to a business. However, not saying that there's something wrong with the practice, because many, let's say, independent financial advisors run let's say, lifestyle practices, and they really enjoy that, and they're successful, and nothing wrong with that. But then you find the other one that really wants to grow their business and really develop into a business.
I remember in those Rich Dad, Poor Dad books that Robert Kiyosaki always said, if you can't remove yourself from the business, you don't have a business, you're just self-employed. And financial planning can be a great career if you want to be self-employed. Yet there aren't many very big, truly independent businesses where the financial planners, I think, are still actively delivering advice, maybe a handful of them. Do you think that'll change over the next decade? Will we see more solo entrepreneurs, more medium-sized businesses, or more groups, or will the independent become scarce?
No, I don't think the independent advice space. Now, again, I'm giving you my personal view here that the independent financial advisor is under threat at all. And I think it really gets back to, your unique value proposition as an independent financial advisor. Starting a new independent advice practice or a business, the research we did probably about 8 to 10 years ago is really it takes about 3 to 5 years of capital, or you should have 3 to 5 years of capital to really sustain yourself over that period, to really start building, a client base. So the one solution could be, if you want to start off as a financial planner or an independent financial advisor, is join an independent advice business, and through that learn through this process.
I'm so glad that research only came out now, because if I knew that at the time, I probably wouldn't have jumped ship. But that, once again, I think the details in that those are the averages, right? You get people on either sides that might figure out different ways or have existing relationships. Someone might need more. They might need 10 years worth of capital.
Most certainly. Well, it clearly depends on, what it costs to run the advice business.
Do you think we're seeing too much talk and not enough action when it comes to businesses? You're speaking to practice managers and financial planners all day. Like, are they implementing enough of the things to actually make a difference, or are they so selective that when they implement something, it really moves the needle?
Again, I think what I've seen over the years, it's not maybe a big bang approach, but it's focusing on some key things that have been identified. That they need to, let's call it the development areas within the advice business, or development area, and slowly but surely, developing that particular area, and then moving on to the next area. But yeah, what I have seen too in the past is implementation seems to be a bit of a challenge when you leave it up to the individual. Saying in a lot of the cases where others need a bit of hand-holding, they need somebody external to really implement on their behalf. They need that guide, through this process.
I think that also talks around the beauty of having a team where you might have different people bring in different flavors and different strengths in areas. If you have one person responsible for implementing everything, you can do everything. You can do anything, just not everything.
Most certainly. I think on to that point is what I've also seen in advice firms is that, let's say there are 3 advisors, each one might have a particular area of responsibility. Is it compliance? Is it technology? So really, bringing that and then rotating, those responsibilities over a particular period of time.
Given we've got the Financial Planning Standards Board that released an updated framework for the skills that a professional financial planner needs to have, and I looked at it yesterday, and the last 2 said tech savviness and emotional intelligence. I was wondering what your thoughts are around the adoption of emotional intelligence around financial planners. Why is it so difficult? And why do we think we're sometimes emotionally intelligent when our emotional intelligence might be in the basement?
Yeah. Again, I think it's about, really thinking, it's for the financial advisor, really thinking that they know the client, they have a deep understanding of them, but maybe they don't. Again, that's just a general statement. So it's really about, developing those skills. Again, I want to refer back to a growth mindset, is developing these new neural pathways and looking at that relationship differently and focusing on that emotional connection with clients.
I can hear that almost a sense of humility, saying don't just assume and don't have too much confidence in this space. This is something that you continuously learn and grow as your relationship deepens with your clients.
Well, that's what my philosophy too is, or my approach is, show me the person that knows everything, and so I think it's really about constantly, learning through this process, absorbing, and maybe through your networking as well, really trying to find out, soundboarding, some principles with your peers in the industry. And through that process, you're learning as well and making refinements within your own advice firm.
So over the last 38 years, you've witnessed a lot of this refining and changes. And was there a point in time where people were a lot more optimistic or a lot more pessimistic about the role of a financial planner? Because it seems like it comes in these waves around, euphoria, or just, it's the end of us all.
Well, again, my personal view is that you're going to get that going forward as well. You'll get the naysayers. You get those that are really, really positive about the industry. I'm very positive about the industry going forward. So yeah, that's my view.
Given, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. As parting wisdom, is there anything that you'd want to say to young financial planners just starting out that might help them, stick through the tough times?
Yes, I would think really building those deeper relationships with clients, really adopting this coaching way of being, and that might be a bit of a foreign concept to many people, but really getting that emotional connection with a client, and then putting if you're running an advice business or practice, getting the foundation, in place is your marketing, your operations, your people, and then your commercial side, which is the financial. So really get that foundation in place, and you must be successful from there.
Given, thank you so much for the wisdom that you bring and how freely you share it. I appreciate it, and you've made the whole profession that much better. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Louis.